Johnny Tudor, now then, I came to working in the clubs late on, and I think it was probably past its best. Now, you went from the working men's clubs right up to the very big clubs. Can we start in the working men's club? I remember Lord Brian of Rydvelyn calling into the late night radio programme saying he'd seen you at the non-Paul club in Rydvelyn. Do you remember it?
Yeah, name drop, but I was there. Yeah, I used to do all the clubs. I mean, that's how I started as a kid, doing the concert parties. So I must have done every club in the Rhondda Valley as well. Wow. And they were great, you had I don't know what it was about the workmen's clubs. They weren't the easiest, but if they liked you, they liked you.
So you'd walk into a place, and you used to go, it was with your dad's sort of like touring concert party type of thing originally?
Yeah, he was the pianist, and there'd be me, and there'd be a girl singer, like a soprano perhaps, and there'd be a tenor, they do duets, and there'd be a comedian, pretty blue at times, and me, and that was it. And we did all these clubs, and we get like about 20 quid for the lot of us.
Wow.
So we'd end up with £2 each.
And the clubs themselves were, I mean, they were pretty, I mean, they were well established, weren't they? There was a lot of money had been spent on them and in them.
Yeah, well, they got better as the time went on. When I started, I mean, it was back in the 60s, early 60s. But towards the end, before, like in the 70s, 80s, you had big acts working them. So they'd have to start paying proper money then, you know what I mean? But whereas we go in with the whole concert party, then it was the single act bit. So you'd go in and they expect blood, how long can you do, boy, hour? And if you did 55 minutes, you haven't finished yet,
And every club had Tom Jones and usually paid him off.
Oh, they paid him off. The Green Fly was one of them in, where was it? Bedwest. We paid Tom off, yeah. And I remember going to Clace in Swansea. He said, and it wasn't an easy club because the acoustics were diabolical. There was all carpet everywhere. It's like singing in a furniture shop. You couldn't hear yourself, nothing. And they said, we paid Norman Wisdom off you. I said, well, you should be ashamed of yourself. I said, he's a genius. Paid Norman Wisdom off. But then I progressed into the nightclub. When the nightclub started, that was in the late 60s, 70s. It was like great. Everywhere had a decent nightclub. And then you'd work there the full week. You'd be on every night.
These nightclubs were very different to the working men's clubs.
Well, this was cabaret. This was like professional stuff now. Yeah? You had good backing, good sound systems. I mean, the workmen's clubs, it was like singing through a town doing bingo, because we didn't have big gear in those days. It was unheard of. You just turned up,
Yeah.
So the clubs, like you had Titos in Cardiff. I think Lonnie Donegan opened Titos. They had all the big stars had come to them, And then there was the double diamond in Caerphilly. I remember doing the diamond once. My agent rang me up. He said, I got Alec Fine coming to see you. He said, from ATV, he's the main booker. Where's the best place he can see you? I said, the diamond. I do a bomb in the diamond. Everybody knows me. So I said, what day is he coming? He wouldn't tell me. So from Monday to Wednesday, I'm killing him now, doing great. Thursday is rock and roll night. Okay.
Right.
And we got Shakin' Stevens on as support. So it's all the rock and rollers have turned up. So I'm having a hard time now battling with this crowd. And that was the night he turned up. Talking about Sod's Law, you know what I mean? And then there was the Hellmane, which became the Stardust up in Usk.
Right.
And I mean, they had Tom Jones one week and Engelbert the next. I mean, it was that kind of stuff they used to put on. Yeah. Neil Sedaka, all the big stars to do these places. There was the Cleopatras in Newport, and they had one over in Bristol as well. You double that. You do the first spot in Newport, and you get over the bridge and do the next spot over there, see? I remember doing the Broadway and Blighty's in Manchester. You had Blighty's and Broadway, two big clubs, and you do the 9 o'clock show at Blighty's, then you go to the other one, Broadway, see? So you'd have top of the bill this side would be the Dallas Boys, and top of the bill that would be Jack Jones who'd come over, see? And then they said to me, do you want to do an early gig? So I was doing 3 gigs a night. At that age, you do, don't you? You can sing forever.
Yeah. And you just count the money at the end of the night.
Yeah. Another club in Liverpool. I was working with Tom O'Connor, and we're doing the Broadway club, see? He said, where are you going after that? I said, I got to do a doubler up in Preston. So I was doing the early show in Liverpool, getting up the M6 to Preston, do another one. Good. So he said, which club is it? I said, it's called the Flamingo. He said, not the Flamingo. I said, what's it like? He said, it's diabolical. He said, it's the only place where the woman mentioned those immortal words, lock the doors, don't let anybody out. So I said, what do you mean? And he explained to me, apparently some bloke had sneaked in and he'd gone in the loft and he was hiding there and waiting until everybody went out so he could come down in the night and pinch stuff, see?
Right.
Anyway, he fell through the ceiling and he landed on the bar. And this woman used to run the place. She used to have like a mink coat on and she'd have like slippers on. She said, lock the doors and don't let anybody out. But that was a bit of one of the rough ones. But there were some really good clubs as well.
What about further west then, Johnny? Did you come further west to Swansea, that sort of area?
Yes, I used to do the Townsman in Swansea, and I used to do the one in Porthcawl as well. What was that called? The Stoneleigh Club. Oh, right. And there was one in Gorsinan called the Rainbow Room. But the Townsman I did quite a bit. Yeah.
Now then, the Townsman has got a lot of great recollections because of Bonnie Tyler. So she was just one of the singers at one stage, wasn't she? I think there were a couple of them, a couple of girl singers. And, you know, in many ways, luck and fate had... I'm not sure if you know the story, do you? Or what happened?
Well, I know she was in the band. There was like a house band, and she was one of the singers. But I don't know how she got, found, if you like.
I think Chris Needs at one stage was in that band as well. Chris Needs from BBC Radio Wales. But the story is, and I know it's true because Roger Bell still works with Bonnie. Roger Bell was working for a publisher in London called Ronnie Scott. And he came down to see a singer, a male singer. I can't know what was his name. Anyway, he went to the Townsman. He went to the wrong room, and he heard this girl sing and thought, "Wow, she's great." So he went back to London and had a little chat. And they weren't looking for a girl singer; they were looking for a boy singer. But a little while later, Ronnie was looking for a girl singer. He said, "What about that girl from Swansea?" And he said, "Well, let's have a little listen." And, you know, then came My Honeycomb, and then came Lost in France, and It's a Heartache.
Yeah.
It just takes one person, doesn't it?
Well, she had a distinctive sound, see? She was like a Rod Stewart, only female form, wasn't she? She had this gravelly voice.
And her sister, Avis, again, must have done all those clubs as well. She's got a beautiful voice.
I worked with her on a Pontins camp, and she's a beautiful girl, yeah. I think we were in Bournemouth, I think.
Right.
And we were in the same hotel, the same digs. It was called the Winston Hotel. There was a nightclub there as well, I think. And she was with her husband. Yeah. She was a really nice girl and a good, as you say, a very good singer.
Fantastic singer.
Did you do the nightclubs with your band and that?
No, we started doing the working men's clubs. It was sort of late 90s. I'd done a lot of radio and TV, and that all came to an end, as it sometimes does, Johnny. So we thought, well, how are we going to pay the bills? So we thought we'd play every club once. We made it a rule, and this sounds terrible now, and as a professional, Johnny, you're going to hate me for this. We made a rule that we wouldn't rehearse ever. We would just stirred up, right, and we'd call the songs out, and then we'd just play them as we felt fit in the right key. Right. But after a while, after you've done, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of 3 or 4 gigs a night, you've got your set then, and we didn't change it for like 10 years. So we started going up and down the Rhondda. We did the Cummer Pioneer Club, and there was another one around the corner, and it was a bit like chapel. If you went to one club, you couldn't go to the other club. We did all the rugby clubs, like summer events. And then
did you do Mardy?
Mardy Workman's Hall. Oh, I loved Mardy Workman's Hall. Now then, which room did you do, Johnny Tudor? Did you do downstairs or upstairs?
Oh, upstairs, a big room it was. Huge.
Big room. So by the time I got there, they'd closed the big room. The big room. So we did a gig, and it was a lovely. I mean, it was one of those magical nights. I'm not sure if you know. It was like lots of things were going on in my head, and I actually wrote a song called "Dancing in Little Moscow" afterwards because of the whole atmosphere of being in this place, which had so many great vibes coming out of the walls.
Well, they call it Little Moscow.
Little Moscow, that's right. And it was because it was full of hotbed of communism. And they said the next on the Monday they rang back and they said, "We're going to open up the top room. We're going to have you back." He said, "We'll sell out." And it was wonderful because I think a lot, like the Moody Blues had played there, Johnny Tudor had played there, all the big stars had played there, and it was great. But halfway through the night, we were playing, and it was going quite well, and then suddenly the table started flying, flying up in the air, and it was just like. It was like the Wild West. You don't stop, do you? You just keep on going. And then I went back like, a year or so later, and it was flat. The whole thing had gone. They knocked it down. It's just like...
Yeah, there was an era when it was all thriving. It was really fantastic. Of course, what happened was, you see, all the work went.
Yeah.
So all the boys are out of work. So, and then the older fellas were the only ones who went to the clubs. The young boys didn't follow them in. So they all declined, didn't they? It was a shame, really.
Yeah, those big clubs then, like Titos and Stardust. What were they like? Were they like like Caesar's Palace? Were they posh? Were they all beautifully attired?
I mean, if you think of Titos in Cardiff, there was the nightclub where you did your act, like the Cabaret Room. There was a restaurant. There was a gambling room. With a couple of dealers and roulette wheels and stuff. And there was a disco all in the one building. But see, what happened was, I think it was Margaret Thatcher's government did this. They passed a law that you couldn't gamble in the same place as a place of entertainment. They thought it was invigilating people to gamble. So you have to go to a different. So it killed a lot of the work. Because a lot of the gambling was paying for the entertainment. It was paying for the musicians. It was paying for the croupiers. I
suppose that's why, like in Australia, with all those, we talked about it last week, about Parramatta Club and all that, it has all the one-armed bandits, but it has the entertainment then in a separate room. Same Las Vegas. Las Vegas, isn't built on Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, is it? It's built on the gambling.
Well, that's the gambling that pays it, yeah. I mean, I got a bill came through. It's on my phone. I'll send it to you. It's about, I think it was Batley Variety Club. And there's the list of people coming there. And it was like Shirley Bassey, Louis Armstrong. I mean, you couldn't, all the huge stars were coming each week.
Yeah.
And there was another one called the Wakefield Theatre Club, which was beautiful. That went up like an amphitheatre. It was built like an amphitheatre. And it was all beautiful lighting. And they always had a nice band. Yeah. Usually, like on the big clubs, they had like front lines and everything.
Yeah.
So it was really good.
You mentioned those northern clubs. I was watching a documentary about the Bee Gees. And, again, when their career just slightly dipped, that's what they did. They went back to the Batley Variety Club. Legendary clubs, and a lot of the comics came out of those as well, didn't they? Those northern comics, they learnt their trade. But I remember, because Elton was quite friendly with Morecambe and Wise.
But Elton brought Neil Sedaka back. Neil Sedaka was down on his luck in America, and he came over here to earn a few quid, and he was doing the nightclubs. He did Batley, and Elton John signed him up to do an album, and that's how he made his comeback.
We were on the same record company, me and Neil Sedaka. And I missed. I was going up to do a recording session, and Gus Dudgeon was my producer at that stage, and I was going to go to the studio, and they said, come in the evening, and I missed the press launch of Neil Sedaka's album in London. And I loved Neil Sedaka at the time.
He's one of my favourites. Very songs.
Yeah.
Wonderful songs. And not only, you could, which is the one, it was like a pop song, and he made it like a very low, moody blues feel to it. Don't take your love away from me. And before it was like, don't take your love away from. But it just showed how good it was constructed, because it could be played in a different genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So those clubs then, people like, I suppose, Les Dawson, Morecambe and Wise used to call it, they were going on a bank robbing tour. They just go and just earn a fortune.
Love the money and go.
Absolutely.
But people were on telephone numbers. I mean, remember Lulu was on $8,000 a week. I mean, going back in the 70s now.
Yeah.
I mean, Dorothy Squires was having $8,000 when she did the Double Diamond.
Goodness me.
And Freddie Starr was on $13,000 a week. At one point, he was on $25,000 a week for the summer season. It wasn't doing so well, so he took a cut, and he did it for $15,000 a week.
Well, there we are. Fair play.
Oh God! The first time I saw Fred, he was in a club in Liverpool.
Right.
He was with a group called the Delmonts. Freddie and the Delmonts, it was called. And I'm in the audience. I've just done a show at the Empire with Dave King. We did a funny thing on the way to the Forum. So after the show, we went to a nightclub for a drink anyway. He was the act. He came on. We were hysterical. It was as funny as... So Dave King said, if this fella doesn't make it, he said, I'll eat my hat. Following year, he did the Command performance. Wallop, he's a big star.
Yeah. And when you went to those, those far off places again that we talked about last week, I suppose it was more like those big clubs in that case, was it? And maybe the cruises are what those clubs are like now.
Well, no, the cruises are more like big theatres. They're like the best theatre you've ever seen. They on the big ships, you've got the big auditoriums, the lighting systems. It's just like being in the London Palladium. It's fantastic, some of these ships.
Yeah.
They're unbelievable.
Titos, I know that you sold out Titos many times, headline Titos, with your dancers as well. What sort of show would you do in one of those big clubs? And when you were top of the bill, what sort of show did you do?
Right. Well, I tried to base my act the same kind of format as Sammy Davis Jr. because he was my idol, see.
Right.
So, and I sing and I dance and I tell a few gags. So I'd start off with an up-tempo number, something like, I'm so excited, da-da-da, something to get on, you know what I mean? And once you're on, then I go into a song and dance number. I get the old straw hat and I do a little soft shoe dance. And then I tell him a couple of gags and I do some impressions. I used to do quite a few impressions in the old days. I used to do, well, obviously Frankie Vaughan, because I looked like him. They want to try me out, give me the moonlight, and give me the girl, and give the rest to me. I used to do a Mickey take on Tom Jones. I used to do we used to do a parody to the Delilah and to Greengrass of Home.
Right.
And then what else would I do? I do Louis Armstrong. I do loads of people used to do. You know, most of them are dead now, so I can't do them anymore. Then I do go into my fast tap dance, really fast dance, and that used to go really well because not many people used to do it. And at the end of that, I'd always be like pretending I was out of puff, you know, going, I'd like to lie down for half an hour, a bit of a laugh, and then I'd tell him a few jokes.
What about the dancing girls? How did that work then? Did you have a regular crew that would work with you?
I only did that once. I was in Monte Carlo. Oh. What happened was I was doing the panto in Cardiff, and my agent rang up. She was French, called Yannick, and she said, this guy's coming over from Paris. He said, Bernard Leon, he's looking for acts to do the casino, but you've got to do your act with girls. Could you do it? I said, well, yeah. I said, easy. I can get some of the girls from the show. Mm-hmm. So I asked for the best dancers in the show. I said, would you want to go to Monte Carlo? I said, do we? So I said, okay. So I got the choreographer, a fellow called Clive Hicks-Jenkins, who was very good choreographer. I said, can you set something up? So we did like the opening number with the girls with me. So they're dancing and singing with me. And then I did a bit of my act, if you like, and I had to sing a French song or an Italian song because that would have been in the contract. And then the girls came back on and did their number, and then we finished all together with the girls with me. So I did the audition, and we got the job, and off they flew us to Monte Carlo. So that was one of the best gigs I've ever done. It was wonderful. They treated you like a lord there, you know.
Yeah.
But other than that, I was a one-man band. I go on and do my thing, you know.
It is really handy, isn't it? Turn up, you know, with your case, your music, nothing else to worry about, no PA.
My manager used to say to me, "You're a coward, you are, John." I said, "Why?" He said, "You do so many things, you don't give them a chance not to like you." So they don't like the song, they like the dance, you know what I mean?
That's great. We had a similar thing. Not that we were any good or different. We were just louder. So when we, because when you go to the clubs, when you can't stop. Well, that's what I learned. I learned, once you lose the room, you've lost the room. So you can't let anybody sit down for that. For the 245s, you've got to keep them going, keep them going, keep them going. Don't stop. Song goes into song, goes into song. And
so what did you do? Like a dance? Did you like a dance set? Did you? Or something?
Yeah, it was all the songs that we grew up. Keep on running into Superstition, and then you got into those breakdown sections that we used to do, like being the bass player who had a very similar haircut. We used to go at some stage when it used to break. I said, "Go break it down," and I said, "We sometimes do impressions." So I used to get Wall, the bass player, and so you can, if you imagine, we're both. So I said, "Who's that?" Pamela Anderson. And then we tell the same stories every night, and the stories get longer and longer. It's like when I went on tour with Max, and I'm hoping to get Max soon. So the call is in. But Max's shows used to start at 45 minutes. And then by the end of the tour, they'd be like 3 hours. Because your stories develop, don't they? You had little bits and bobs.
It's like Ken Dodd, you couldn't get him off.
Those days will never come back, I suppose. It was that moment in time where it all worked.
Everybody went out. I mean, you know, your mother, your father, your auntie, your uncle, they'd all go to the club. They'd have a chicken in a basket and a pint of beer, and they'd watch a show. I mean, it was a full night out. They've lost the feel of it. It's all like watching telly, you know what I mean? And it's a shame because there's nothing. But what makes me laugh is when they go on ships, they all go to see the show. It's like, you know, all of a sudden there's a show. Oh, go see that then. But they don't make the effort here. I mean, it's like in the old summer seasons have all died.
Yeah.
I mean, summer seasons were half your work.
Yeah.
You know, and they were great shows. You know, you had dancers, you had comedians, big stars topping the bill. Engelbert Humperdinck in Scarborough, and you'd have Tom Jones in Blackpool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's really a shame it's all died off. But
someone needs to write a book about it, Johnny. Someone needs to write a book about it.
Yeah, we should do, really.
Yeah.
They used to say, right, when my old man was in the business, he was a theatre man, okay, going back years and years, and radio. Then the theatres started to get hammered by the television, and now then the nightclubs started getting hammered because everybody wanted to go abroad. Somebody had a brainwave opening a Titos in Mallorca once, and I thought it'd be good to do a summer season in Torremolinos, because can you imagine, they're all Brits down there.
Absolutely.
But nobody's done it. Perhaps we should do it, mate.
Hey, maybe we should do it in Britain this year, because nobody's going abroad.
That's right. We go down Porthcawl Pavilion and do a show.
Johnny, as always, lovely to talk to you. As we say, it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.